What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Jay Rich, back to bring you your MLB props for Thursday, July the 28th. Yesterday, we did all right. We had a decent day. You know, unfortunately, Jose Ramirez decided to shit the bed on me, so that wasn't so happy about that. But Steven Kwan went over. Jose Ramirez did go under. Adolis Garcia, Rosario both went over. JD Martinez went under as predicted, and then Tommy Edman decided to strike out 3 times in 5 at-bats, even though his team put up 6 runs. So it was okay. It was okay. 4 of 6. You know, if you put together Kwan, Rodriguez, and Garcia, you lost that play. But if you played Kwan and Garcia, you probably made your money back, so you're probably in good shape. If you played any of the other ones, maybe you played the JD under, maybe you played Kwan, maybe you played Rosario all in one, then you're looking really good. But 4 of 6 on the guys I talked about yesterday, that was kind of saying they're in good positions. You know, there's other guys who made the list, but didn't want to touch it too much. Talked about the Cardinals, how maybe, you know, it's funny. They put up 6 runs. It was all at the bottom of the order. The guys who were actually on PrizePicks didn't do anything. So that's just how it goes sometimes. But I have an interesting list for you guys today that I want to show you. So let's get into that right now. Talking about some of these guys. And we start off the list with Aaron Judge again up against Brady Singer and the Kansas City Royals. Recently traded Andrew Benintendi. So this is kind of interesting trade for the Royals and the Yankees. With Benintendi coming to town, he's now going to be a Yankee going forward. Traded to the Yankees from the Royals for a couple of prospects. But Aaron Judge ran into a buzzsaw yesterday. I talked about how I didn't want to play him yesterday because he's up against Max Scherzer. Simple as that. Not too difficult to explain. Scherzer destroyed him. Over 5, 3 strikeouts. But in the previous 4 games, Judge had multi-hit games in each 4 of those games. He had a home run in 3 of his last 4 games prior to the last one. So you see, 8 of his last 10 games, he's hitting the over. You know, this isn't updated to showcase last night, but 19, 23, 25, 32, 22. Judge is still on a tear and up against a far worse pitcher today in Brady Singer. So I don't mind taking an over on him, and I don't mind running back Steven Kwan. Again, up against Cutter Crawford, who is actually pretty good. You know, I'm a Red Sox fan. I've been watching Cutter Crawford quite a bit. They don't give him a long leash. You know, I had the strikeouts last time. He got 4. And so, again, if you want to take the strikeouts at 4, I don't hate it. Cleveland isn't striking out a lot, so I probably wouldn't take that. But last week he was at 4. He's at 4 again today. So if you did want to take that, you know, it's just the problem for him is that he doesn't have enough leeway to get the overs for his strikeouts. He gets a decent amount of strikeouts. He's got good stuff. If he's on it, he can get the strikeouts, but they're only letting him go about 75 pitches. And so if you're only going 75 pitches, you know, you can get higher, but you have to have a really high strikeout rate. His strikeout rate is good, but not great. So Kwan is kind of a maybe play because I don't know how well he's going to play against Cutter Crawford. You see, the P-Val factor is really not so much in his favor. The cutter from Mr. Crawford is a negative, and so is the curveball. So it's really just, can he work off that fastball and that slider? We'll see. It's pretty neutral overall, not one I'm necessarily targeting. And then you have a lot of unders. So we have Jock Peterson, Jesse Winker, JD Martinez, and Brian Reynolds. Brian Reynolds, I think, has to be at the top of the list up against Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler, phenomenal pitcher. Obviously, we all love Zach Wheeler. If you like the over on his Ks, I already bet that. So if you do want to take that, don't think it's a bad bet overall. I believe it's still at 6.5. If it gets to 7, I'm probably like, I don't know. But against the Pirates, I think 6.5 is a very, very, very good number. But back to the hitters' fantasy scores and Brian Reynolds. Brian Reynolds coming back off of injury. He had some time off. He's got over 4 in his 2 games coming back. So I'd be willing to bet the under here because, again, even though he's in a good spot, he usually bats high on the order. He's up against Zach Wheeler. He's not up against some random pitcher. I don't expect him to get it going today up against Zach Wheeler. And same with JD Martinez. We talked about JD Martinez's struggles. We talked about his under yesterday. He obviously put up another over 4 outing yesterday. And he's up against Tristan McKenzie. Tristan McKenzie, you see the negative 5.2 pitch factor. Whether it's the fastball, the slider, or the curveball, it looks like JD's probably going to struggle today against McKenzie. You see the pitch factor is extremely good. McKenzie's been on fire. One of my favorite pitchers to watch. The way Cleveland just pumps out these starters, it's very difficult for me to fade a guy like McKenzie, especially how well he's been pitching. You see 2 points over his last 14 days, 1 point over his last 7, barely a third of a hit per game over the last 14 days, half a total base, barely scoring a run, and hasn't gotten RBI in the last 14 days. So JD Martinez is definitely struggling, and I think that if you're looking at just a potential parlay of both JD Martinez, Brian Reynolds for unders, I don't mind it. You see 6.5 for JD. I believe he was 7.5 yesterday. Did nothing. Brian Reynolds is at 5, though, again, up against Zach Wheeler, so he doesn't need to do a lot to go over, but he still does need to do a little bit. I would prefer a 5.5 on that number. That way, he does have to do a little bit more than just a hit and a run, hit and an RBI, but overall, I still think a 5 is very manageable for a guy who hasn't done anything since coming back. And then Jesse Winker up against Jose Urquidy. So it's interesting. You know, I don't mind this number for Winker. I think he can potentially go over. You see, he's been 0.78 points per game over his, or hits per game over his last 14 days, 2.4 points per game. It just kind of depends on what happens with this lineup, because he hasn't scored a run or got an RBI or an extra base hit in the last 14 days, which is great for a guy with a total at 6.5. You see he's completely overmatched from a P-Val factor, but most of it is due to the fastball. It's not like JD Martinez, who's overmatched in the fastball, the slider, and the curveball, and Brian Reynolds as well is mostly fastball driven from Zach Wheeler, but Zach Wheeler does throw his fastball a lot, so that is a big factor there. Of these 6 guys, right, the way I look at it now, I don't mind playing Judge. I don't think you should shy away from playing Judge. I like him a lot. He does have an 8.5 total, though, and that scares me a little bit. I think you're looking at Winker, JD, and Reynolds as 3 guys who are all poised for unders. Jock Peterson as well against Justin Steele. I don't think it's a bad play, but you see from a pitch value perspective, it's not quite the same advantage that you see from the other 3 guys. Minus 3.7, minus 5.2, minus 3.8. And that's because all 3 of these pitchers are very, very talented. And as well, on top of that, they have pretty good bullpens behind them. And so I think for that reason, you know, you're going to see depth out of Wheeler. You're going to see Christian McKenzie go pretty deep, more than likely, if he pitches well. Urquidy usually will go probably around 6, and then they have a good bullpen to back him up. And so for all those 3 reasons, that's another reason why I like these guys quite a bit. And then you talk about Kwan, if you wanted to go the other way. They got Cutter Crawford, who's pretty decent, but we know on the back end that bullpen is god-awful. And so from that standpoint, I'd be willing to play Steven Kwan. I think I'm loving Brian Reynolds, JD Martinez. The third, though, that I want to take, I don't know whether I want to take Judge or Kwan. I guess I'd probably roll with Judge just because I want to roll with the talent that Judge has and possesses each and every day. So I think if I was picking 3, I was placing my bets, I'd go Judge for an over, JD Martinez, Brian Reynolds for unders. If you wanted to do a mega under with all 4 of these guys, I don't hate it, especially if you wanted to roll with 3 of Jesse Winker, JD, and Brian Reynolds. But if I was making your mix and match for you and I was taking your picks for you, I would go with Judge, JD Martinez, and Brian Reynolds. JD's been so bad, and I don't think it's going to continue. I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon, especially against McKenzie. And Wheeler, just phenomenal pitcher. If you want his over Ks as well, I just think he's in a great spot. You know, you got Ohtani pitching today. You got Wheeler pitching. Some great strikeout pitchers today, so it should be a lot of fun. And maybe one of the reasons why we're looking at a lot of unders today. But overall, that's what I'm looking at today. I think Judge, JD for an under, and Brian Reynolds for an under is the way to go. And as always, make sure to drop me a like and subscribe for future content if you appreciate what I do each and every day. And as always, if you tail, give them hell. And if we fail, do not bail. Make sure you mix and match your plays. Make sure you go to PrizePicks. Use promo code WAKEUP to get your 100% deposit match up to $100. And I will see you guys tomorrow with more pitching matchups, full slate, hitters fantasy score, maybe some strikeout props. I'm still trying to get the model figured out, but I'll get it done soon and we'll be able to work on it. I'll show it to you guys, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm out. Peace.